War changes people. It leaves scars that can be seen and some that can't. But what if the battlefield leaves behind more than memories? Across history, soldiers from every generation have returned with stories they never expected to tell. Not just about combat, but about encounters with something they couldn't explain. Tonight, we'll explore true accounts of military servicemen who reported ghostly figures on battlefields, phantom voices warning them of danger, haunted barracks, eerie encounters in the jungles of Vietnam, and chilling experiences inside places forever marked by unimaginable tragedy during World War II. Now, a disclaimer. Tonight's episode is going to talk about war, battlefields. We are going to cover World War II. There will be talk of Nazi Germany and concentration camps. And in no way, shape, or form does this podcast condone that type of evil, or any evil, period. This is purely for historical and for the paranormal. We only talk about this because it has happened. And we have to talk about it. If we don't talk about things, such as the Holocaust, they doom to repeat themselves over and over again. I have the utmost respect for every Holocaust survivor and for the ones that didn't make it back. For the heroes of every country that fought in World War II to stop the Nazi tyranny. So with that being said, we're going to continue with the episode. Some call these stories stress, others call them coincidence, but those who lived through them insist they experienced something real. I'm your host, Ed, and this is the Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast. The Angels of Mons, World War I, August 1914. The British Expeditionary Force was retreating from the Belgian city of Mons. Outnumbered and exhausted, many soldiers believed they wouldn't survive another day. Then reports began spreading through the ranks. Several soldiers claimed they saw glowing figures standing between the British and advancing German troops. Some described angelic warriors. Others believed they saw St. George leading spectral archers. The story spread rapidly after the battle. Although historians debate whether the reports grew from a fictional story published shortly afterward, some veterans later maintained that they had witnessed something extraordinary during the chaos of combat. Was it divine intervention, a battlefield hallucination, or something stranger? To this day, no one knows. Haunted battlefields of World War II. Now we're moving ahead to World War II, where thousands of servicemen returned home with stories that had nothing to do with enemy soldiers and everything to do with encounters they couldn't explain. The jungles of Guadalcanal. The Battle of Guadalcanal, fought between August 1942 and February 1943, was one of the bloodiest campaigns in the Pacific. American Marines and soldiers fought in dense jungle against determined Japanese forces under brutal conditions. Even during the war, some Marines spoke quietly about strange experiences. Veterans described hearing footsteps following them through the jungle, only to discover no one was there. Others reported hearing whispered voices calling their names in the darkness. One recurring story involved Marines seeing shadowy figures standing among the trees. At first, they believed they were enemy soldiers. When they raised their rifles, the figures simply disappeared. Several veterans later said the jungle often became unnaturally silent. Just before these experiences, the insects stopped, birds disappeared. Even seasoned combat veterans found those moments deeply unsettling. Were these psychological effects brought on by exhaustion, fear, and isolation? Many historians think so. But those who experienced them often insisted what they saw felt completely real. Don't go that way. Among military folklore are accounts of soldiers receiving unexplained warnings. One veteran recalled preparing to walk down a trail when he distinctly heard a voice behind him say, "Don't go that way." He immediately turned around, expecting to see another Marine. No one was there. Moments later, enemy machine gun fire erupted exactly where he had been heading. He later said he believed that mysterious voice had saved his life. Stories like this have appeared throughout military history. Some describe an unseen companion. Others speak of a guardian angel or the spirit of a fallen comrade. While impossible to verify, these accounts have been shared by veterans from multiple wars. Occupying Nazi Germany. When Allied troops entered Germany in 1945, they encountered scenes few could have imagined. They liberated prisons, camps, and towns devastated by years of war and treachery and torment. Some soldiers later described an overwhelming feeling that certain places were wrong. Among the most discussed locations were former concentration camps. At sites including Dachau concentration camp memorial site, American servicemen guards and later visitors have reported hearing unexplained cries, distant footsteps in empty buildings, doors opening on their own, and seeing dark figures moving through the abandoned barracks. There's no scientific evidence confirming paranormal activity at these locations, and many researchers point to environmental factors, grief, suggestion, and the emotional weight of these sites. Even so, many witnesses have described experiences they felt were impossible to explain. Some former soldiers said they had trouble remaining inside certain buildings because they felt watched. Others reported sudden, overwhelming sadness or fear unlike anything they had experienced elsewhere. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, memorial and museum guides, visitors, and paranormal investigators over the years have shared reports of hearing children's voices, unexplained crying, footsteps echoing through the empty barracks, and sudden cold spots. These stories remain incidental, and the museum does not endorse paranormal claims. The site's primary purpose is to preserve the historical record of the Holocaust and honor its victims. For many people, whether the experiences are paranormal or psychological, the overwhelming sense of sorrow left by the atrocities committed there is undeniable. You have to think, not just in Auschwitz, but many concentration camps. They tortured and just brutally killed and did so many other things to the Jewish people, to people that Nazis didn't believe were human, merely thought they were insects. And those horrible atrocities had stained the walls of those buildings, that land, for eternity. So you have to believe that something was left behind. I don't want there to be souls that are trapped there because they went through so much torment to begin with. I believe those souls ventured on into heaven. I believe that the Nazi occupiers who were killed there are stuck there, and they're living the torment, which it should be. It should be that way. And you got to think all that atrocities and all that sorrow stained that land. So there's going to be residual markings of what had happened before. A soldier's reflection. One U.S. veteran reportedly described walking through one of the liberated camps and saying he had never experienced silence that felt so heavy. He later recalled that although hundreds of soldiers surrounded him, it felt as though thousands of unseen eyes were watching. He never claimed to have seen a ghost, but he said it was the most unsettling place he had ever stood. Whether these encounters are supernatural, psychological, or something in between, they remind us that places marked by immense suffering leave lasting impressions, not only on history, but on the people who walk through them. We're now going to head into the Vietnam War, where American servicemen reported some of the strangest battlefield encounters ever recorded, including phantom patrols, ghostly warnings, and unexplained figures seen deep within the jungle. So we're now going to move on to part 3, Vietnam Ghosts in the Jungle. You've now listened to veterans talk about Vietnam. You've probably heard them describe the jungle as a living thing. Think vegetation blocked out the sun. Every sound could mean danger. Every step could be your last. For many American servicemen, however, the most terrifying moments weren't caused by the enemy, They were caused by things they couldn't explain. The ghost tape operation. One of the best documented psychological operations of the Vietnam War was Operation Wandering Soul. The U.S. military knew that many Vietnamese people held a traditional belief that those who died without proper burial could become restless spirits. To exploit that belief, recordings were produced of eerie voices, ghostly cries, and messages supposedly from dead soldiers pleading with the living to leave the battlefield. The tapes were played from loudspeakers and helicopters during nighttime operations. Some American servicemen later admitted that even though they know the recordings were fake, hearing them echo through the jungle in complete darkness was deeply unsettling. Several veterans recalled hearing the broadcasts while on patrol and momentarily forgetting they were part of a psychological operation. One soldier later said, "You knew what it was, but at 2 a.m, after days without sleep, it still got under your skin." The Phantom Patrol. One story shared by multiple Vietnam veterans tells a patrol spotting another group of American soldiers moving through the jungle. The figures appeared to be wearing U.S. uniforms. Relieved, the patrol attempted to make contact, but before they could reach them, the entire group simply disappeared into the dense vegetation. Searches found no footprints, no radio traffic, no friendly units operating nearby. Some veterans believed they had witnessed the spirits of soldiers killed earlier in the war. Others believed exhaustion and poor visibility created a powerful illusion. Whatever the explanation, the encounter stayed with them long after they returned home. The Woman in White. Another story repeated by several veterans involves sightings of a woman dressed in white. Late at night, soldiers reported seeing a woman silently walking near the perimeter of their camps. She never responded when called. She never appeared frightened. As troops approached, she vanished into the darkness. South Vietnamese civilians sometimes associated similar stories with wandering spirits searching for lost family members. American troops who experienced these sightings often admitted they had no explanation for what they saw. The Watcher. One Army veteran described repeatedly seeing a tall, dark silhouette standing just outside his unit's defense position. The figure never advanced, it never spoke, it never moved. It simply stood, watching. Every time soldiers investigated, nothing was there. The same figure reportedly appeared over several nights before suddenly never returning. Years later, the veteran still insisted he had no idea what or who it was. Coming home for some servicemen, the strange experiences didn't end when they left Vietnam. Veterans have shared accounts of hearing boots walking through empty hallways, waking to voices calling their names, or dreaming so vividly about fallen friends that they believed they had actually visited them. Mental health experts note that trauma, grief, and post-traumatic stress can produce intensely realistic experiences, including vivid dreams and sensory perceptions. At the same time, some veterans have interpreted these moments differently, believing they were final visits from fallen comrades or experiences that couldn't be explained by psychology alone. Whether these stories stem from the extraordinary stress of war, the lingering effects of trauma, or something beyond our current understanding, one thing is certain: many veterans returned home with experiences they have carried for decades. In our final part, we'll explore haunted military bases, ghost ships, and the chilling stories still told by active duty to this day. Haunted bases, ghost ships, and our final thoughts. Welcome back to the Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast. Throughout this episode, we've heard accounts from battlefields in Europe, the islands of the Pacific, the jungles of Vietnam, and places forever marked by tragedy. For our final segment, we're looking at military installations and ships where service members have continued to report unexplained encounters, even in times of peace. The Lady in White, Fort Leavenworth. Fort Leavenworth is one of the oldest active military posts in the United States. Dating back to 1827, over generations, soldiers have passed down stories of a mysterious woman in white, seen walking near older buildings and roads after dark. Witnesses have described her appearing silently before fading away moments later. Others have reported hearing footsteps echoing through empty hallways or doors, opening and closing with no one nearby. No official explanation has ever confirmed these stories, but they remain part of the fort's enduring folklore. The Grey Lady of the Queen Mary. During World War II, the RMS Queen Mary served as a troop ship carrying hundreds of thousands of Allied servicemen across the Atlantic. Today, the ship is famous for ghost stories. Veterans, crew members, employees, and visitors have reported hearing unexplained knocks, voices, and footsteps in empty corridors. One of the best-known legends is that the Grey Lady, an apparition reportedly seen walking through parts of the ship before disappearing. Whether paranormal or not, the ship has become one of the world's most talked about haunted locations. Gettysburg after the war. Although the Gettysburg National Military Park predates the modern U.S. military, many active duty service members have visited the battlefield and shared unusual experiences. Some have reported hearing phantom cannon fire on quiet nights. Others describe distant marching voices or seeing figures dressed in Civil War uniforms that vanish moments later. Park officials focus on preserving history and do not endorse paranormal claims. But stories from visitors and military personnel continue to circulate. Why so many stories? Military psychologists point out the combat places people under extraordinary physical and emotional stress. Sleep deprivation, grief, fear, and constant vigilance can all influence perception. These factors can contribute to vivid experiences that feel completely real. At the same time, many veterans firmly believe some encounters cannot be explained by stress alone. For them, the memories remain as clear as the day that they happened. The important thing is not to dismiss those experiences outright, but to listen respectively to the people who lived through them. I heard a story once of a man who had went to the war in Iraq. It was after 9/11. He was in a building. He ran up it to go after a bad guy. And he got to the top and he noticed that the guy down there wasn't the guy he was chasing. It was just a figure. And it just pointed at him. And then a grenade came out. Blew the building up. He survived. But he never forgot that figure he saw. He later reported on a radio show that he was driving home late one night and he saw the figure again. And it pointed at him. And he wrecked his vehicle. He also survived that. Now, whether that, you're going to hear my dog. She likes to bark a lot. Whether that was something that followed him home from battle or something that had always been with him, it was still a story that needed to be told. In closing, tonight we've traveled from the trenches of World War I to the jungles of Vietnam, to the haunting silence of former concentration camps, and to military bases where strange stories continue to be told. Were these encounters caused by trauma, coincidence, the power of belief, or did some servicemen truly witness something beyond our understanding? We'll probably never know. What we do know is that countless veterans, men and women known for discipline, courage, and clear observation, have shared experiences that changed them forever. Whether you believe these accounts are supernatural or psychological, they remind us that war leaves lasting marks on the human spirit. Most importantly, we honor the sacrifices of all who served, especially those who never came home and those who continue to carry the invisible burdens of war. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, follow Paranormal Inc. Ohio on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a comment. Share the show with a friend. And if you have your own true paranormal experience from military service or from a family member who served, we'd love to hear the story. We'd love to talk about it in the next episode. Till next time, keep your eyes open, question everything, and remember, sometimes the things that haunt us are more than just memories. I'm your host, Ed, and this has been the Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast. Stay safe and stay curious. Thank you guys for coming and checking out this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I love each and every single one of you oh so very much, and you will hear from me in the next one. Thanks, everyone. And again, thank you to all the service men and women out there that have fought and came home, or some that had fought and gave the ultimate sacrifice. I have the most respect for you all. The sacrifices that you made and the sacrifices that you continue to make, even out of the battlefield. Thank you so much. Now, you'll hear me from the next one. Bye, everyone.